Welcome to a very special edition of Quarantunes. Episode 7 is going to be a spotlight on someone in the local community that I have the pleasure of talking to. I'm going to try to do more of these. If you enjoy, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and make sure and go and follow all of the social media sites, as well as PayPal and Venmo available for donations. You guys are amazing. Just a side note, I had a little audio issue with the recording, so I wrote a song in the background just in case you hear it. That's just to mask some of those awful sounds that I have underneath our talking, so don't mind it at all. Apologies. And without further ado, enjoy the show. VOG for the Kansas City Business Journal events. Quite a few of them I see. Co-host of the program with Soren Petro on 810 AM WHB Sports Radio here in Kansas City. I am talking to Kurtis Seaboldt. Kurtis, how are you, bud?
Fantastic. Good to talk to you. I would let's not call me the co-host. I will say I am the second banana. There is one host. There are co-hosts on the first two shows we have on our station, but that is Soren's vehicle, and I would say I'm a widely heard second banana.
I love it. Well, you guys are both very necessary in my book.
Thank you.
Love to Soren always. Kurtis, I'm a big fan first, and I tell you that from the bottom of my heart. I raised my daughter. I'm a single dad. I have a 3-year-old. She's type 1 diabetic. She's my entire world, and I raised her here throughout the week. She goes to her mom's on the weekends, and I listen to you guys every day. And I just wanted to say
awesome.
that you guys are absolutely my. It's a joy. It's a pleasure. It brings me. And I'm a music guy, and so I choose to listen to the sports radio that I listen to because I'm just more connected to it. So I just wanted to say hats off first to that.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's when we just sit in a room and kind of look at each other. And nowadays, with Soren broadcasting from home, the only person I actually see all day is Jed, and occasionally see Lebo will pass through, and I'll see a few other people. But for the most part, it's the one business where I know I'm talking to thousands of people, but I don't actually see them, and we don't have remotes anymore, so you don't even get that experience. So it's always good to actually hear from someone who's listening.
Absolutely. Well, and we'll get out soon. You guys have been, you guys are part of that hub of entertainment that's keeping people from, losing it. So it's a huge thank you to you. And
Sure.
I'm trying to team up with you here and do the same thing because I just wanted to pick your brain about just kind of where you've been and so I'll kind of start there. Like, what sparked your interest in broadcasting, the most as a young man? Like, what can you tell me about your upbringing and discover, how you discovered your passion for radio specifically?
Yeah, well, I was born in 1966, and I was 9 and 12 years younger than my other two brothers. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. And I wasn't supposed to happen. My doctors told Mrs. Seaboldt, you're done having children. When my brother Brian was born in 1957, and 9 years later, here I came. So most of my upbringing wasn't like I had any problems. I love my older brothers, but there were, when you're 5 and they're 14 and 17, you don't really hang out with them. So I spent a large portion of my childhood just kind of by myself, and that kind of got me into, I read a lot of books, I watched TV a lot. It wasn't just junk stuff. I mean, I'm sure I watched crap shows when I was 7, but there was a lot of just input to me from the media culture and various things. So that I think probably at some point got me interested in what I was hearing and seeing coming from TV and radio, because it was so much of what my input was at that time. And so I don't really know when I became interested in that part of it. My oldest brother, Gary, was the sports guy. My middle brother, Brian, was the music guy. So almost all of my formative influences were things they were listening to or watching. I just noticed at some point during my childhood, and I discovered sports probably later than most kids did.
Okay.
It would have been somewhere like the summer of 7. Everything that I seem to remember watching live dates back to the drawing line is the summer of 75. Every event before the summer of 75, I don't remember, and everything after that, I do remember. So somewhere along that line, it kicked in to me. And when it did, it kicked in like you could not believe. I was immediately immersed into it. I wouldn't even say hip deep, all the way up to my eyeballs. I loved every bit of it, and I consumed every bit that I could. And I just remember at some point, I found myself listening to the broadcasters more than I did watching the players. And I didn't think about it, hey, I could be a broadcaster at that time. And that never even occurred to me then. I just noticed that my friends would even talk about, that I would be outside doing something, and I would kind of like, every once in a while, just like, here goes so-and-so, and here's the pitch, and things like that. I would go outside and I would throw passes to myself in the front yard, and I would call the action.
Yes.
And I found that I was more excited by my call of the action than I was with the fact that I caught this mythical touchdown. So at some point that just kind of hooked with me. But going through, I never even thought about doing that after, up through, even through junior high and high school. No one in my family had graduated from high school, much less have gone to college. So I never thought there'd be a pathway to that. And so it just I kind of got lucky to fall into it, which I'm guessing we'll get into here pretty soon. But that my influences are getting into radio. I think just was largely because that's what most of my input was growing up, radio and television.
Yeah, and it seems like when you're doing that and you're by yourself, like you said, you spend a lot of time. There's probably an initial comfort that comes from some of those certain elements, and then it can grow from there to a passion or however you choose to see it. How did you, like, when did it shift from, hey, I like this, to, hey, I actually have a job doing this?
Well, I will touch back one more time to my childhood. My first actual announcing gig would have been about 1972 or 73. My middle brother Brian and some friends, they used to like to get in his room and turn on records and act like they were the band. And dude, one of their favorite albums. Yes, one of their favorite albums was Three Dog Night, a live album. Yeah. And I got to be Jimmy Greenspoon, the keyboard player. Yeah. But I also got to be the announcer. So there was a guy that popped on and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Three Dog Night," and I got to stand up on the edge of the bed, and act like I was the announcer. So that was my first announcing gig, was announcing my brother's fake Three Dog Night band in his bedroom in Raytown. The first time I realized I could do something like that was the beginnings were interesting in two different ways. I was in high school, and it was a basketball game one night, high school basketball game at Raytown High School, and one of the officials didn't show up. And our athletic director asked me, "Hey, have you ever done refereeing before?" I says, "No." He says, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, one job I wouldn't mind doing a public address." And so he says, "Interesting. Well, we'll let you do it some night." So I began doing the Raytown High School girls games in about 1987, just doing the PA. And that was the first time that I actually cracked the mic and people actually heard me. And I got better and better and better at that. And then the boys guy left, and I began doing boys and girls. And then Raytown South heard me do a game, said, "Hey, why don't you come out and do our games?" And I started doing boys and girls for both schools, and I started doing Grandview games. So that's when I started making money actually doing things with my boys. Wow. And through that, I began to meet people in the media that thought I had a natural ability to it. And they said, "Well, you're really good at this." And fans would come out of the stands, parents of the other team would see me after the game and go, "Boy, we sure like the way you announce those games. You really make it exciting." And I began to think, I've got something going there in that regard. Yeah. And so I started thinking about it. But at that time, I was in my early 20s. I still had no idea of how to do it. And I was very fortunate one night, and this is how I got into professional radio. Would have been the spring of 1996. I'm in Raytown. I'm at a store. I had a hankering for Breyer's ice cream. So I went to what I think was the Thriftway at that time, at 63rd and Raytown Road. And I ran into a woman that I'd gone to high school with. This was exactly 10 years after high school. I ran into a woman named Lynetta Adams, who at the time was Lynetta Wilson. And she says, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" She goes, "Well, how's your career in art?" Because I was a wannabe artist in high school, but I was never good enough. So I knew I couldn't do that. I go, "Well, I guess I was supposed to do that, but I didn't have everything with it." I said, "What I would really like to do is to get into radio." She goes, "Really?" And the man next to her was her husband, Gil Wilson. And he goes, "Well, I have a radio station that I run up in Liberty called KCXL 1140. He says, we have a weekend sports talk show. You should come up and sit in with us some night." So sometime. Jeremy Wood and Mike Cox do this show called The Sports Page.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'd love to." So I went up there. It was literally in a house not far from the campus of William Jewell.
Yeah.
And I sat in with him once during the 1996 NBA Finals. And I liked it. And they both liked me. And so a few weeks later, I says, "Hey, I wouldn't mind doing that again." And he says, "Why don't you come back and just join the show? They both liked you. There's no money involved in it, but you go restaurant." That was my first experience with restaurant trade. We used to go to Greasers and get burgers and malts after the show.
Yeah.
And then Mike left. And then so Jeremy and I just built this show in Liberty. And after 2.5 years, we'd gone from an hour to 3 hours, and people began to notice us. And we didn't have any callers because we didn't have any advertisement, and we had more call letters than callers. But we kind of honed our craft there. And by the time we were ready to step up, we were pretty good. And we went from there to 1510. And by that time, I'd known people in the business that had taken note of us. Danny Klingscale probably being the first member of the established media to kind of welcome us in and say, "Hey, you're one of us now."
Yeah, they identified you immediately as not a
Yeah.
tourist. You guys weren't tourists in the thing.
So we both did impressions, and we both used comedy and stuff that really hadn't been done in AM sports radio. So that was how we got into it. So I look back and I think if the referee hadn't missed the game, would I have done PA? And if I hadn't been hungry for ice cream on May, whatever the hell it was in 1996, what would I be doing now? Because there was no other pathway for me. So I fell into radio at the age of 30. And once I got in, I just took advantage I met the right people. I guess I had a natural ability toward it, but I met the right people. And Seren, of course, Seren Petro being probably the most important person that I met in that business that kind of took a liking to me. And I just took every job I could get. "Hey, do you want to do weekend sports or morning sports with Bob Davis?" "Sure, I'll do it, and I'll learn. I'll get better at it." So I just took any job I could get, and 24 years later, I have a career, I guess.
You happen to be like such a big music fan. I was just curious, did that ever come up on the radar as you were going through all the stuff that you talked about? Or was there ever an option for music, or were you did it never just arise?
There really wasn't. I mean, there was a brief time when Jeremy and I we kind of we moved around a bit. There was a time where we left 1510 and we didn't have a gig. And then we got onto an FM station when Jason Whitlock liked us and hired us to do skits for his show on KY, which is then 99.7 KY, in late 90 or 98, I guess, the football season. He had a show called The Full Jason with Larry Moffat, who was the PD there. And so that got us into the building in Entercom. And then when that show went away, Larry liked us enough that he hired us to do like a Saturday morning rock and jock type thing. We play music, we talk about sports, we do humor. And it was terrible for a number of reasons. One, because we didn't know anything about FM style broadcasting. I just don't think we were very good at the time. And not that we wouldn't eventually become good. That's nothing against what Jeremy and I, we just weren't cut out for that type of deal. We were cut out to talk about football and basketball.
Right.
And so people who wanted sports didn't want to hear music. And the people who listened to music on Saturday mornings didn't want to hear sports. So no one liked our show because we didn't give everyone was getting a lot of things they didn't like. So
yeah.
So it was, I have actually, played discs, but my idea at that point was still getting back into the sports thing. So I guess if I had run into someone whose husband had Gil Wilson been a program director at an FM, radio station, I might be doing middays or something at some radio music station now, not sports. It's part of the reason that I do what I do is because that's the path that I've wandered into. With sports radio. I mean, but the only reason I'm here is because of that meeting. And so whatever that meeting was going to be, I guess, is probably what pushed me that way. I mean, I'd love to. I've thought about that. Like, one of the things I'll do when I'm driving, I'm hearing music. I'll think of how would my throat of that song be, or what would my back cell be? If I was on an FM station, I'd have this joke, or I had this observation, or there'd be something that was said in the song that I would make a note of afterwards. But I'll never ever. I'll never ever do that. Like, I think it's funny that in REO Speedwagon's Time for Me to Fly, Kevin Cronin says, intoleration. And I'm like, that's not a word.
That's not a word.
I mean, I could come out of that saying, hey, there's REO Speedwagon. By the way, Kevin Cronin created a word in the middle of that song, and
that competence, right?
Yes, but the competence of love. There's so many of those things, and there is humor to be found in music that I think I would be able to use in that regard. But the reason why I never got into music as far as, being a DJ is because that just wasn't the path. I've tried to play music, and I played drums in a little garage band, but I was never good enough to do that professionally. But so, I mean, sports and music are my two great loves. And the only thing I've been able to make a career out of is a sports talk. But I think I probably would have found my way to being a good jock, but the opportunity never presented itself to me. So here I am.
Well, make no mistake about it. I would prefer you do this because I get to hear you talk more than less, and I get to type in my music. So I think you chose just fine on that.
Yes, that's true.
Is Rush the best band of all time, and what makes them the best to you?
Well, the Beatles are the greatest band of all time, and I mean there are two ways you can measure a musical artist by commercial success and cultural influence, and they're number one on both charts. So, yes. I mean, but the Beatles have never really needed an advocate in that regard. I would gladly be one if anyone wanted to counter any idea or in any way discredit the success they've had. But they're number one. And always will be. Rush is the band, though, that I think I've had the strongest emotional connection with. And I don't know that I can pinpoint anything other than just their absolute honesty and integrity when it comes to music. And a lot of that is played out in the lyrics of Spirit of Radio. But, I mean, yes. I always knew of Rush growing up. But I remember I guess I began kind of discovering them when a lot of people discovered them with of my age. Permanent Waves, 1980. I was 14, and I hadn't heard anything before that. And then I went to school. One of the guys I ended up in a class with in Raytown High School was a guy named Bruce Kittle, who played drums, and he was a huge Rush fan. And we were in a math class together, and we became fast friends. And he was a huge Rush fan. He kind of took me down the Rush road, and he really opened my ears to all their stuff, and I was just hooked immediately. I mean, everything about them, the three amazing musicians, the lyrics, just incredible, and like I said, just the unwavering commitment to playing whatever they want, staying consistent with their sound while adding new things. Their personalities, I mean, their relationships. I've never wanted to be in a group more than I would want to be one of those three guys the last 40 years. I mean, just what an amazing. It'll be almost like being a member of the Beatles. I mean, to me, that's just that camaraderie and all the just a line here or there and to one of the other people, and they know exactly what it is. And just that whole thing.
No doubt. What a wall of sound, too, with three members.
Everything about them is just so easy to appreciate and enjoy. And the fact that they're just such good dudes beyond that. They're funny. They like sports. They're big baseball fans. They've been the back cover of Signals. They assigned places, positions for everyone in the band. I mean, I know Getty has sung the national anthem at an All-Star game
Oh,
in
yeah.
Baltimore in '92, and it was the Canadian national anthem, "O Canada." But it's just everything about them is just so awesome. The fact that they're great musicians is beyond that. So Rush probably is the band that I think I've had the most emotional connection with over the years, and having tried to play music even a little bit, you understand immediately just how good those guys are, all three of them.
Yeah, that type of prog type of music too. That is what really, like, when you go to them. I don't know if you're a Dream Theater fan or if you like some of the prog type of stuff. Really gets pretty difficult. And that's really cool to hear that Rush was like such big baseball fans. That's kind of why I've always like had this amazing connection with the Chiefs, and I got to perform down at the pep rally for the Super Bowl, which was wonderful. It was an honor to be a part of that, because there was nothing I was more excited for than obviously watching this Super Bowl. So it overshadowed getting to play for 16,000 people.
Yeah,
it just didn't even matter. It was like, yeah, on Sunday my team's going to take that field for the first time in my entire existence. So it's hard for me to really care about anything else. But no, and then singing, you said Getty singing the national anthem, stuff like that. These are the things. I got to watch one of my songs premiere, and I do that rock version of Kansas City, and they play it. They used to play it at Kaufman. I don't know if they play it anymore, but they played it at Arrowhead a few times. And
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and so I've definitely been, as much as I can, connected with trying to connect my music to these places. So I definitely the connections that some of these musicians make to things like that. I just think it's really cool to kind of get the inner workings of that, find out the backside of that, and who's connected with that. And I think it's cool too, because prior to having so much stuff at your fingertips entertainment wise, I think that these things reign even more supreme, and you see it from decades past how like they didn't get a chance. There was no social media, so you couldn't see behind the veil to see some of the things that made people real, actual humans. And so hearing those stories, even from things that I don't know about, my uncle Eric was a huge Rush fan. He's the one that turned me on to Rush, and he couldn't, what was it, the YYZ solo? Is that the right song, or did I get that wrong?
No, YYZ is an instrumental, and it has a very great kind of pitch and catch exchange between Neil and Getty for a few bars in the middle of that, and it's just and his solo, the drum solo on Exit Stage Left, is in the middle of YYZ. So
that's probably
that would be the one solo. That was the first drum solo that I heard Neil Peart play. Was in the middle of that. It's at the end of that little pitch and catch. It's Getty Neil, and Neil's third solo rolls into the solo. And when he gets done with it, he jumps back into what he was playing, and they go back into the body of the song. So that was the first time I actually heard him play. And of course, the other thing about their music is so great is they are complex, but yet if you're a casual musician or music fan, you don't feel like you're being talked down to. I mean, the groove, the hook is the linear, the line through the song. You know what I'm saying? That straight line through the song is always there for you to follow. You never get lost in the middle of a Rush song. But if you're a musician and you think about it, they're all over the place. But the casual listener never loses contact with what the groove is, what that line is. And to be able to do those things at the exact same time is stunning, in how good you have to be at every part of it to be able to do that. And that's the one thing that you can listen. There's some like Spirit of Radio and Free Will. Even Tom Sawyer. And Tom Sawyer is the most, like, that's the poppiest Rush song.
Of course,
ever.
Yeah.
But damn, that song is tough to play.
Yes.
There's so many things in that tune, but you'd never listen to it and think, where are they at?
Yes. No, that's exactly right.
You always know where it's at.
That's exactly right. And the other thing too is that the ability to limb separate too is another thing. A lot of people, because I've played drums now for 20 some years and have tracked drums on a lot of different records and work with, like, I grew up listening to bands like Corey Taylor and Slipknot and Korn, and I've actually done music with those guys now, and these are the guys that have inspired me to become where I was. And so I actually did music for them that I had to imitate their own bands to do the music. And it was like, well, gosh, that's actually the best job I've ever gotten. You're asking me to imitate things that I was playing on pillows on my bed in my bedroom.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, sure. So I ended up doing those songs, and I thought, it's just an amazing thing though, because the drummer has an ability to see. The drummer comes in the band and doesn't have an ability to create the melody, like just on face value. He's a drummer. He's like he's gonna lay down the foundation, the beat. Well, a lot of guys felt like they could be, replaced or like print stamped because of like technology now. And I think that that's the thing that drummers like Neil Peart, drummers like, I was always a big, Pink Floyd and Pantera were the two bands in my life that really influenced me the most. And it became but the drummers, it's what kept me playing drums. I've been a guitar player and a singer my whole life, and I've been a songwriter, was my biggest attribute. But being a songwriter, I had to be able to play all these instruments so that whenever there was no one around, you got to get it done. I want the song done.
Yeah, exactly.
But these drummers, like those guys created a name. Danny Carey was the one I was going blank on. Another guy who's absolutely just amazingly influenced by Neil Peart. These are guys that you can't replace them. They have found a way to almost imprint a melodic stamp of their name onto the music, and it's not just percussion. It's become like a third dimension.
For sure. The drummer's number one job essentially is so that everyone in the band and everyone listening knows where one is.
No doubt.
But guys who can do all of that stuff they do, but you always know where one's at. It takes a special talent to be able to do that. All the greats know how.
Absolutely. Do you think is there a greatest decade for music?
I've always thought it was the 1970s, and in particular R&B. I think there's kind of a line that has gone up as far as like production values and ability to play music.
Of course.
And then there's a line going down, which is reliance upon musicianship with computers and stuff, and how as you go further and further into the future, the 80s were that decade where a lot of the stuff was just, there were hardly any instruments played anymore. And to me, the middle of the 70s and that R&B and even disco for a band, for a music that was just so universally panned at one point, it's some of the most amazing musicianship and production values there's ever been. And it all kind of started with Gamble and Huff and that Philadelphia sound, and to me, that the 70s R&B is the perfect intersection between musicianship, reliance on musicianship and production values, creativity and writing. The atmosphere of the music in the 70s is just amazing. It's every song makes you feel good about what's going on. There are very few. There are some dark records in the 70s. Marvin Gaye, "What's Going On" is a very dark record in some ways. But there are a lot of songs on there like "What's Happening, Brother," which is the song that comes after "What's Going On," is a very uplifting song about connecting with a friend and kind of getting through the tough parts. But most of the music of the 70s was kind of had that great atmosphere to it, and it still remains to me the most called back decade of music. I went to a friend's daughter's, they have those, when they're in theater and they're in music and stuff, they have those showcase things at the end of the year where everyone who's in kind of does their own deal. And this was like 3 or 4 years ago, and it's like a third of the songs that were played that night were songs from the 70s. People doing Billy Joel and stuff like that, and that stuff, that would have been like me doing something from the 1940s, like you would no one at a 1985 talent concert was up there playing "In the Mood" by Glenn Miller.
They were playing, I guess.
They were playing the 70s, and that music to me has lived in people's hearts the longest. So to me, the 90s were great as well, because that was kind of a rediscovering of musicians and the grunge thing. That kind of began a period where you didn't have to play any specific type of tune.
Music took. I always tell people, music in that position in the 90s, music couldn't have gone, and this is a compliment, music couldn't have spread out and chosen individual degrees of separation any more precisely than in the 90s.
Exactly. If it has, and my number one thing has always been melody. And as much as I like lyric writers, I mean, one of the things I like about Rush is the lyrics, but without a good melody, it's just a poem.
That's right.
There are no hit lyrics. There are lyrics that are remembered.
It's a great way to say it. There's no hit. Yes, I love that.
For all of the lyrical examination of "Smells Like Teen Spirit" and that era. Why does that song stick in your head? It isn't the lyrics. It's down, but down, 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 down. It's because Kurt Cobain was Paul McCartney when it comes to writing hooks.
Yeah.
And that's why those songs stick around. It's always been the melody. There are 600, and that's why melody writers are always more amazing to me than lyric writers. There are 600,000 words in the English language. There's 12 notes.
Right.
And I mean, it's funny. I thought of that line. That has been my line long before Sam Elliott said it in that damn movie. Those 12 notes. I'm like, yes. I almost like stood up in the theater and went, I've been saying that for 20 years. You know, I did it first.
Yes. But, no, it's true though. There's only so much you can pull out of a palette of colors with 12 colors.
And people keep doing it over and over and over again. It's amazing to me that people keep finding ways to combine those 12 notes to in ways that move people.
Right.
It's and you think of how, if you try to base it, I'm getting really in the weeds here. Think of just how odd a pleasing melody is. A series of vibrations hits your eardrum, and it causes you to feel a certain way. I mean, how the hell do you account for that and put that together? Just that alone to begin with.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then take it to another level and talk about harmonies. How do we find two notes now that harmoniously work together and are pleasing to the ear even more so?
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, by this point, all the research, all the work has been done for us. All the physics or whatever has been done for us. Now we're left with knowing that particular combinations and major and minors and tonics and stuff like that have all been, someone's done all the work, and we just get to use the information as we go forward. But it is the whole point of why a song why you like a song is just so uncontrolled by the person listening to it. I mean, you have no choice of whether you like or don't like a song. You can't put any intellectual framework around it. You hear the melody and it either connects or it doesn't. And that's just so cool to me. I don't know what it is. There's no pretension. There's no it's either yes or no, and you can't do anything about it. It's why you find yourself humming a song you think, God, I hate that song. Why am I singing that song?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a good song. Because it's got a hook and it's in your head.
Yeah,
I think you don't like.
I think in the 90s there was a commercial for a toy called Polly Pocket, and the only reason I remember that is because I can't remember the song. I just remember that it's seared into the side of my face.
Yes.
And so I couldn't, and it's so hilarious because that's so true. You will sing things, like someone will sing something, you're like, I hate that song, and it never leaves.
Yes.
And it's like, well, I see why it's stuck around. I can't,
right.
But I will say this, like the technology advancing, like you said, has actually been a hindrance to just pure musical making and musical creation. And even though it doesn't always have to be a hindrance, it's like, hey, I don't have to use this as a crutch. I can use it as, an enhancement or an accessory rather than the crutch to get there.
Yeah.
That's kind of what has happened over the last kind of like, I would say two and a half decades, but more importantly over the last decade. But is there any genre or music or any specific artist that's flown into your radar on the last decade?
Not in particular. I will say it does seem like we're at a time now more than ever where you don't have to have any particular style of music. When I listen to the Grammys every year, it seems like it's just a bunch of songs now. I mean, there really is. There's country and there's this and there's that, but there's so many. There's more willingness to knock down barriers and infuse different types of music and have it be okay. I mean, it's kind of like when I was in high school, you had the freaks and the jocks and you had the nerds and you had this group and you had that group. There were walls put up. you really couldn't be in two different groups. Although I was pretty much a floater, I was kind of, everyone liked me. I really wasn't in any group.
Yep.
But if
you
were
and I
in
have that
one
in common.
group,
I'm a musician. You
yeah,
kind of fly
yeah.
between all the crowds.
But if you were in one group, you couldn't be in the other group. I don't think that exists in music now, the way it exists. I mean, if it's got a good melody, as I kind of called back to earlier, I think that kind of sells. And it's okay to sit there and listen to what you think would be four different types of music and like them all. And that's the one thing about the last decade or so, is that I think, at least from my perspective, a lot of those walls seem to have been knocked down, and it's just, do you like that song? Great, jam to it. It's okay, you know.
Yeah. You don't have to actually buy into the entire artist either, and you can just like a tune or two and not like these other ones. And that's, I think that, you know, I run parallels on my opinion on that. I think that I like ingredients to make, you know, a spaghetti, right? But I also I just like tomatoes too. So like, I like both. I grew up like, you know, in a good era to like everything. I listened to Biggie and Tupac in '95. Probably shouldn't have. I was 10, but like I was there. I was already in it, and I loved it, and I loved hard, heavy stuff, and I loved. My dad was all the meantime showing me Skynyrd and Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and the Beatles, and I'm ingesting all of that. And like my parents were the raddest parents when it comes to music, because my dad's showing me that stuff from the '70s. My mom is showing me grunge. And I'm like, you guys are the, like, wow. I look back now and I'm like, I could have never had better guidance.
Exactly. Wow, that's fantastic.
Oh, it was such a help.
My mom and dad played me. My mom was, my dad was more of a rock fan than anything. My mom was kind of a country fan. So if I ever tried to raid my parents' album collection, it was Conway Twitty and Tammy Wynette. And
yeah, which I love too.
A lot of that stuff. I'm like, okay, but you know what, I didn't at the time, but you go back and you listen to it and you're like, oh, hey, those guys are pretty good, actually.
You know, and I could probably speak for the way that you just talked about your high school. Like, it's funny, you and I are at a little different age, but mine was identical. And I don't know, and I'm like, I would hope that you're right, because it was the same way in my school that there was a point in my life where before you can be a connoisseur of all the arts, you had to maybe identify who you were. And so that was like that difficult phase in high school where you're like, well, because in high school, it's funny because I think I still have the freaking camo cutoff shorts and the Pantera shirts that I had then. But that's like, you know, I had to be that, even though I went and bought the Jay-Z Hard Knocks, the third Volume 3 album. And my friends who were all like Pantera were like, are you serious? And I'm like, yes, I'm serious. And like, it was something that I definitely had to identify who I was first, because the same exact thing with country that you just said was with me too. My mom had some country there after it was right before the hard rock. It was country. And she got into some drug issues, and I think she had a little darker, you know, time around her. And then the grunge really connected with her. And you know, now she's a religious woman. So I tell her, send me everything. I don't care what it is. If it's good, I will like it. And that's how I am. And so that's why I love to pick your brain about that, because I know that I wonder if today's kids are still having to, if it's okay. The question is it innate that we do have to find an identifier before we can travel and be like more broad in our like tastes, or is that just a social thing that we can get out of society?
I think the walls are knocked down in almost every area like that. I noticed that when just from and I'm not sure if this answers the question or not, but one thing I noticed going to 8 years of high school plays and stuff, because my friends' daughters were exactly 4 years apart, so it went 4 years for one and 4 years for the other. So I saw a lot of plays. I saw every play done at Blue Valley Northwest for 7 or 8 years. But it used to have the theater group and this group and that group. Now everyone does everything. I mean, the football players and basketball players go to the plays, and the actors go to the basketball games. And I don't think there's as much of a need for anyone to put their stamp on any identity.
That's
I think
awesome.
You're just kind of you. And I think that, and I think there's also more of an understanding that how difficult it is to get through that whole process anyway. And I think if you're just a good person, I think it's okay. I don't think you have to. No one identifies as that anymore in school. At least the kids that I talk to.
Yeah, you don't have to be
that are in
singular
that
anymore.
spot.
You can be all those
Yeah.
things. Gosh, that's just that's I have 2 young daughters, so I that's exactly what I want to hear. I also I
Yes.
tell them all the time that I said I say that there are still things you have to fight for, but there are also things that we should be greatly appreciative of, because I want you to know
Yep.
that I don't want anything to hold you back, and I think you can dominate. So let's go dominate.
For sure.
And so that's always been but running parallels on that, watching my mom get paid the same as guys who are just coming on the crew, which was absolute BS. And then
Yep.
understanding that, my mom's tough enough though that the one thing I learned from her is that don't stand by and let it happen. And
There are a lot of things to fight for, but it seems like the generation that's coming into power and the one that's kind of waiting in the wings, it seems to be more willing to do that, and they seem to be more, they always say the arc of progress, the arc of history bends toward progress. I mean, I think there's always the next group down that wants their life to be better and to be things to be better for everyone. I think there will always be, there's always this fear, all the young kids today, they're just so-and-so. And then you see the political process unfold and realize they're actually more interested in progress politically and things of that nature than I ever was at that age.
Yeah,
and part
definitely
of
getting smarter
they've
younger
kind of
too,
had
right?
to, but I have much more faith in the next generation of Americans than I would have for my generation, looking back at what we thought about politics. I mean,
and that's gotta feel good at any of our ages, to have that feeling, because that's not always the case generationally.
Yep.
That's very powerful, and that's cool that we kind of segue into that, because like I told you earlier, man, we can't all really have this wonderful buttery voice like you. So what else can some of these young people that listen to this and that I mean, like I said, man, and I don't like to toot people's horn, but I do love to speak the truth, and I think that you have a true amazing natural talent, but not all of us have that. So what can some young people that are aspiring to do radio do to better their chances of having success in the business, or at least getting to a point where they have an opportunity to make it their occupation?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I was given a wonderful toolbox by Jerry and Joanne. My dad had a pretty good voice. My mom's voice was so deep that people would call. I remember this happening routinely. I hear her answer the phone as a kid, and she'd say, "Hello," and then I hear a pause. She'd say, "No, this is Mrs. Seaboldt." And then people would call and say, "Hello, sir, is your wife home?" "Oh, this is Mrs. Seaboldt." They thought because her voice was so deep and resonant. My older brothers, particularly Gary, he could have been. Well, if he'd have had any indication or any way to get into the business, he would have been something else, because I would have loved to have had his pipes and his projection. So, but I was given a nice toolbox to start with. But as far as, by the time I was 30, it didn't do me anything, because I didn't try. I didn't have a path. So you do have to find a way to get into it. And I'm probably not the best person to ask as far as how to get into it, just because I landed in such a weird way. Other than the idea that, I guess I'm proof you don't have to take the usual route to being on the air. With
Absolutely.
So many different ways to get out there. I mean, you don't necessarily have to go to college and get an internship and begin at the bottom. There are ways to get out there. But the most reliable route, though, is still go to school, do internships, as many as you want, wherever you want, and don't just study broadcasting. This is something I've heard from a number of people in the business, and broadcast majors are considered, I won't say a dime a dozen, but nothing stands out about someone who just goes to school just to do broadcasting. You're much more served if you major in English or history and minor in broadcasting. Find a way to make yourself interesting, because broadcasting will get you on the air. But if you don't have anything interesting to say, if you can't keep your audience's attention for a long period of time, they won't listen to you anymore. So make yourself an interesting person, know things. And the best way to do that, I think, is to really pay attention to English, particularly writing. If you're in this business in any form, you will have to be able to write. You have to write. If you're a sportscaster, you got to write your own copy. You have to know how to write for broadcast, or just how to write. Period.
Huge.
Know how to use words that connect with people, and know how to write quickly. And those are things you only learn by studying English, study history, so that you can make reference to things that are interesting. So that's what I would do. And then once you get into the position where you can branch out and begin to get these internships and find jobs, take jobs that get you on the air. You may want to stay at home and get a job running a board or something, and you may get a job right away. But unless you're on the air, if you want to be on the air, get on the air, and that may mean going somewhere to a small town. You may have to go to Chanute or Keokuk, Iowa, or something. But get on the air. That's the only way you get better, is to get on the air. So that would be my advice. Work hard, go to school, become an interesting person, and then find a way to get on the air as quickly as you can, because that's the only way you get to where you want to be in this business is to get practice.
Powerful advice, man. We are talking to Kurtis Seaboldt. I'm going to do, in honor of your show, I'm going to do a quick Final Four. This is something that I enjoy always. You guys always keep me entertained. So, quick Final Four here. Best music movie, fiction or nonfiction?
Best music movie?
Yeah, music movie, fiction or nonfiction?
Oh, wow. That is such a good question. Best music movie, fiction or nonfiction?
And there might be one that might be a recency bias or something like that, too.
I'm going to say Purple Rain.
Ooh, I have not seen it.
Yeah, that's the one that stands out. I mean, there are movies that have music in them. Would Beatles' Hard Day's Night be a music movie?
Yeah, I think it would be.
Okay, then that's number one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen Across the Universe then, obviously?
I have.
So like that would also be considered, like, because it's not really a music movie, but it is.
Right. It's about music. So, yeah.
Very music driven, and like you can almost argue that Tommy the Pinball Wizard is a music movie. It's a musical, and it's like driven by artists. It's like a super. But yeah, I love that. So, best sports movie, fiction or nonfiction?
League of Their Own.
Really? Who's in that?
My favorite. It's a story about. It's a true story. It was done in '92. Penny Marshall directed it. Tom Hanks and Gina Davis. It's the story of the girls' all-professional baseball league, which came into existence during World War II, when the men were fighting overseas.
Right.
They came up with the idea to have, I think it was 4 to 6 girls' professional baseball leagues, and this was about the forming of that league. And the writing, the acting, the editing, the cinematography. It is a brilliant film. Anyone who's never seen it should see it. To me, not only is my all-time favorite baseball movie, it is my all-time favorite sports movie. A League of Their Own. I
love it. What's the most disappointing concert you've ever been to?
Let's see.
I had to go a little negative
with
you. We've been way too positive
many.
this whole time.
I generally only see bands that I know are good. I saw. I haven't really seen a concert that disappointed me, but I do remember seeing Creed at Municipal Auditorium. This would have been off their second album, and Creed is another one of those bands like Dave Matthews. It's become like in vogue to just pile on them, like like they didn't deserve to be like the most popular band in the world right then.
Right.
Creed was awesome.
Yes, agreed.
Shut up.
Yep.
That dude could sing. They could play their ass off.
Yes, they're amazing.
And so I would say, but in that building, the acoustics were awful. Municipal Auditorium was not meant to house a rock concert. It was meant to house circuses and basketball games. So you were sitting there going, all I hear is echo. I don't even know what the hell song they're playing.
Was that Creed and Tantric?
It might have been. It would have been around 99.
I believe it was. I think I was there, and I do remember it being very billowy.
I was like, I can't tell what they're playing.
Yes, because I saw them one time, I believe at Kemper with Seven Dust and Three Doors Down, and it was a phenomenal show. Creed always put on a great show. I did some shows with Mark Tremonti, their guitar player, and he's a super nice guy, and like all those guys were.
Yeah, Scott Phillips was great. I mean, he had a definitive style. It wasn't, I mean, very, very rhythmic, very active, always kind of, always kind of in some form of rhythm. I mean, I liked his style of drumming. So that band was fantastic.
Man, I love them too, and that was the other thing too with them. I'll tell you sometime about the shows that I played. I played a show with Ozzy and Slash to 200 people in a small club. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, there's some.
Holy cow.
I did some shows with a band called Camp Freddy. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're a cover band that's based out of L.A. and it was like Matt Sorum from Guns N' Roses was the drummer. Yeah. Billy Morrison from the Cult was a guitar player. Dave Navarro played some guitar there for a little bit from the Peppers, and then they would have guests come up. They had Juliette Lewis come up. I hung out with Chester Bennington and talked to him from Linkin Park. And then two of the special nights during that week that I did with them, it was a month long I did with them. They had Slash come in and play with us, and then one they had Ozzy come in, and it was like you started to see the difference in what a superstar, and like these icons are, because all the superstars are like buzzing because Ozzy's coming in, and I never saw that until I was like in it, and I was like, wow, these are levels that I've just never even imagined. But I digress. Last one, even though you're a lifelong social distancer, like you've self-proclaimed, what public event are you looking forward to attending most once this is all over?
A public event. I want to go to a ball game. I mean, I just want to, and there may not be baseball for the rest of the season. At some point, I just want to be able to walk into a stadium filled with people and just kind of get that feeling that you get when you're at a big game where no one knows what's going to happen, and everyone's wondering how's this going to play out, what's this going to be, and there's that kind of delicious anticipation of what the rest of the day will bring, and everyone around you feels the same way. There's just a feeling, there's just a pulse about being at a live sporting event, especially a big game, and I just I really want to do something like that. I mean, obviously, I'd love to go hang out with some friends.
That's right.
Go to a restaurant and be able to shake someone's hand or give someone a hug.
No doubt.
The last hug I gave to someone was 6 weeks ago this past Wednesday at the Big 12 tournament. And I haven't touched a human being's hand or anything in six weeks. So that part, I want to do that. But as far as a public event, I just want to go see a game. I just want to or a concert will be fine, but just that. But you know what a concert's going to be,
right?
To me, a game is a different thing because you don't know what's going to play out before you, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, concert's more of it's not really a live organism like a sporting event is. It's a live organism out there that's constantly shifting and changing. So that's absolutely it, man. Kurtis, it's been wonderful to have you, man, and I really, really appreciate you coming on, and I hope I can have you back again. I would, and we've got too much to talk about when we're done with this segment, anyways. But I do really appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, anytime, man. Had a great time, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Well, that was Kurtis Seaboldt from Sports Radio WHB 810 here in Kansas City. Thank you to Kurtis for coming on the show. This has been a special episode of Quarantunes. We're going to do some feature spotlights like this coming up. If you enjoyed this content, please let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe as well. And make sure you follow me on the social media sites. Tyler Lyon on Facebook, Tyler Lyon Music, as well as T-Line Music on Instagram, and the band sites for the Leo Project, Breakpoint Method, and Evelyn Awake. Again, special thank you to Game Day Sports Pub in Manhattan for the sponsorship this week. Make sure you guys come out and see me at the next Game Day Sports event. I love it out there. It's very special. I try to do very special shows there. It's a lot of fun. And guys, all the donations are greatly appreciated, and you can donate at venmo.com/TLionMusic as well as paypal.me/TLionMusic. I'm out of here. It's been a wonderful one. We'll see you next time.
That game is fun! Oh my god!
A new high score!
What does high score mean? New high score, is that bad? What does that mean? Did I break it?
I'll get you next time, Gadget.